Live Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane right here on Wager Talk TV. I am your host, Steve Merril, joined by Rocky Atkinson from sportsmemo.com and Andy Lang from wagertalk.com. And Rocky, let's get right into it. How was your week at Richmond, my home track? It was killing me to have to watch it on TV and see it in an empty stadium there, but Keselowski dominated for the most part, Rocky.
Yeah, well, I had a loser with my premium play. I had Byron over Bowman, and that didn't work out too good for me as Bowman dominated him the whole race. I think Andy was right on that. I think he was kind of on Bowman there. Drops me to 86 and 46, 65% the last 3 years with all my NASCAR picks. I'm actually 37 and 20, 65% this year. With my NASCAR plays. I did give out a bonus play on Twitter that actually won. It's about the only positive thing I took from the weekend. I gave out Logano over Elliott, so hopefully a lot of our followers cashed with that one. Like you said, Keselowski, he dominated the race as he predicted. Not us, but he predicted. We may need to get him on the show as he said he was going to win, and he did. He led 192 laps out of the 400. To gain his fourth victory of the season. He automatically advanced to the next round with that win. Ryan Blaney, he didn't run good as expected. He had a 19th place finish. Austin Dillon had another solid run, finishing fourth. Alex Bowman with another solid top 10 finish at ninth. Stage one, Denny Hamlin took stage one. Brad Keselowski took stage two. The bottom four drivers battling in the playoffs heading into Bristol is William Byron, Cole Custer, Matt DiBenedetto, and Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney's in 16th spot right now. Kurt Busch is in 10th. Eric Almirola is in 11th. Clint Boyer is in the 12th spot. The top 12 will advance to the next round. Harvick, Keselowski, and Hamlin are the only drivers locked into the playoffs at this point.
And Andy, who's almost basically locked in as well as Austin Dillon. He's in good shape. He second and fourth so far in these two races. He wins he basically was in contention to win this race the majority of Richmond. I mean, have you seen something, Andy, from Austin Dillon that has all of a sudden changed? By the way, I went back and looked. If you take out Daytona, he's top 9 in 4 of the other 5 tracks recently, and he had a 15th. So I mean, he is running well the last couple months.
No doubt he's running great, and I think you see something. I think every year we see something where something clicks with a team, with a driver, with a car going into the chase. It happens every year where there's a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere who hasn't been bad. And I think there's something to be said about when your car gets into the playoffs, your team all of a sudden allocates all their resources to them. I used Eric Jones last year when all of his teammates were in the final. I think it was the final 2, the final 8 races, and he was out. And you just saw them. They took all of his best crew members away and put them on other teams. All the resources for the cars, all the best equipment, they took it from Jones and put it into Truex and Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, and for good reason. And I think there's something to be said about that with Austin Dillon. I'm not sure what has happened, but he's gotten this bump. It's not an accident that it coincides with being in the playoffs. The team has just put a little bit extra. Maybe the owner has said, hey, here's an extra, $250,000. Get the nicer spring, or it's something like that. Something has obviously happened. And with NASCAR, you have to make quick pivots in these head-to-head matchups. You need to see who's hot and who's cold. Austin Dillon has flip the switch, and we're going to talk about him in a little bit. Alex Bowman, a switch has been flipped, and call it coincidence, call it it's playoff time. I think it's playoff time. I think these teams are putting more resources in, and I don't think it's an accident. I don't think this is random from Austin Dillon. I also don't think it's random from Alex Bowman. I think this is they're putting a little bit of something extra into the car, the team, and maybe the driver's driving a little bit more motivated, but it's playoff time, and we see this every year. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised it's Austin Dillon, but I'm not surprised to see a team in a car kind of come out of nowhere. I would have picked DiBenedetto as my car that kind of comes alive in playoffs, but it's Austin Dillon. And yeah, it's a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Dillon, he's been pretty much a top 15 guy all season, and that's obviously technically good enough for the playoffs because you got 16
With no
guys.
upside, though. With no upside.
Right, and
Now there's upside.
right, and the win he got wasn't legit. He wouldn't have won that race in normal circumstances for the most part. And Cole Custer was the other guy, of course, that snuck in. As Rocky, as you mentioned, he is not going to make the cut most likely. Blaney, though, is a guy I want to bring back up, Rocky. I mean, we talked about him last week, how he was in bad shape going into Richmond, which was not one of his better tracks. Darlington, he apparently says he does not like as well. So he's in a basic must-win situation. In fact, I guess technically it's not a must-win, but it pretty much is because he's like 50 or some points out. Well, I guess if he's 50 some out, I guess you could catch up if a guy drops all the way to the 30s and he finishes like second, but you'd have to have like 4 or 5 guys in front of you all do that. So Blaney's in a must-win situation. Do you change the way you handicap a little bit, Rocky, with a guy like that? Or are you a little bit more cautious about using him in the head-to-head just due to the fact that it's like kind of balls-to-the-wall mentality with these guys that are in the bottom 4 right now?
I'm gonna stick with what I always do myself. I may factor that in just a tad after I do my normal handicapping, but not much. Ryan Blaney this weekend, he's at another track that I don't think he runs that well at as well. So he's had 3 tracks here that he really don't run good at, Darlington, Richmond, and Bristol. And although he was running good, I think in Bristol earlier this year when he got wrecked, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But Blaney, he's got to win. They're going to have to make moves that they normally probably wouldn't make unless he's got the fastest car out there, which he possibly could have. He's been very fast this year. But most likely he's probably not going to make the cut. He's probably going to have to win here, and I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, Andy, what about you? I mean, I would agree if, we don't talk a lot about outright winners. I know you guys focus more on matchups, but a guy in the bottom 4, or at least from my perspective, Andy, would make me a little nervous on head-to-heads. Do you treat this a little bit differently going into with the guys that are pretty much on the cut line, have to win?
Well, right now he's bottom 4 for a reason.
Right.
He's bottom 4 car and driver right now. He's bad at Darlington, and he's not good at this track. So you're asking a guy to come out of his funk and win a race on a track that he's not comfortable racing with. He's got to beat guys like Harvick, who isn't great at Bristol, but he's still Harvick. Hamlin, who's great here and who's in the zone. Kyle Busch, who's an animal at this track. So and Chase Elliott, Truex, who isn't good at this track, but he's still Truex. So you're asking him to try and win at a track he's got bad history at, and he's got to somehow finish ahead of all those guys. It's a strong task, and like I said, in NASCAR, it's very streaky. Guys get on cold streaks and guys get on hot streaks. I will not bet on a guy to just pop out of a cold streak. So when he's in a cold streak, I'm betting against him. Blaney made me a lot of money throughout the middle part of the year after the restart. I've been off him, and now I'm expecting to make money betting against him. That's the nature of betting head-to-heads in NASCAR.
Yeah, and speaking of cold streaks, I guess we could say Kyle Busch has had a cold streak. He's had a cold streak from winning at least. He's been consistently top 5, top 10. As I mentioned, I thought Richmond maybe would be the track he could break out. And once again, 6th place finish, 6th place after stage 2, outside the top 10 after stage 1. So he got better as the race went on without practice. It's what we continue to see out of Kyle Busch. Rocky, he's a guy that, for me, I see he's going to make the cut. He's top 5, top 6, but just doesn't look like there's any more upside to him this year. Have you seen anything different with Kyle Busch?
Well, I was expecting Kyle to run a little bit better in Richmond as well, but he had to start at the back. So that was, he had to make his way all the way back to the front. So that was kind of tough for him. I'm definitely on him in Bristol. I think he'll have a solid car. I think he's finally coming around a little bit. He hasn't got that win yet this year, but I believe he and his team are still very hungry, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't take this home.
Yeah, and Andy, we're going to talk more about Bristol here in a moment, but I got to bring him up because he's won 3 of the last 7 outright. He's been top 5 in 5 of the last 7 Bristol races. I know we've said this every other week this year on the show for the last 4 months, but he's at his best track this week. But, Richmond technically probably is Kyle Busch's best track during his career. Did you see anything at Richmond other than the sixth place stage 2 and finish that makes you think differently?
No, I'm chuckling because we give out the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. award. I think we need to start giving out the Kyle Busch this is going to be his week award.
Joke.
I mean, for 3 months. This is his week. This is his track. This is going to be it. No, he's a terror at Bristol. I think Bristol's his best track. It's a track with so much volatility for wrecks, and the pit road is a nightmare to deal with. It's the craziest pit road in NASCAR, I believe. And for someone like him to have the success that he's had at Bristol, I have faded Kyle Busch. I will be on him this week. This is
wow.
I cannot go against Kyle Busch in this spot in the playoffs at a track like Bristol. Obviously, someone said it in the chat room. You can't handicap wrecks. I think it's going to take a wreck to keep Kyle Busch out of the top 3.
And one thing I will say, I think it's become pretty obvious that not having the practice sessions has hurt Kyle Busch this year as much as anybody. But you look at what he did back in July this year. He finished second at Bristol. So it was his best finish overall this season because he hasn't won a race. And now he's at the same track the second time. So you got to figure those notes might carry over. He basically has a practice session now. So you know what, Andy? I'm starting to get a little more behind Kyle Busch than I was when we started this show 10 minutes ago because, Richmond wasn't quite the performance I thought. But then again, he hadn't raced there this year other than the Xfinity car. Rocky, any other thoughts here on Richmond? I mean, they're both short tracks, but as we talked about last week, nothing really quite runs like Richmond. It's a 3/4 mile. It races fast. Bristol's a half mile. It has more banking than Richmond. It has more banking than most tracks other than the 2.5 milers. And then, of course, Martinsville's a flat track half mile. Anything, though, at Richmond as far as short track that you take away for this week at Bristol that's interesting, Rocky, that they have them back-to-back like this?
Yeah, very little. I think the track that I'm going to be looking at to compare with Bristol will be Martinsville. They're different, but they're both short tracks. So that's the other track I'll be looking at mainly.
And we mentioned too, I know we mentioned Dover, or Andy, you mentioned that last week. I thought that was a good comparison to Richmond because it's a 1 mile with some banking. Bristol and Dover are both concrete tracks. What are your thoughts overall as we kind of close out Richmond, Andy? Anything like that you're looking at from Richmond that might transfer over to Bristol?
I take as much out of the Richmond race to compare to Bristol as we got from Kawhi Leonard last night, which is 0. Zilch. Nada, nothing. No, you can't look at sorry, that was a Kawhi. Actually, it's more of a Paul George. I'm from Indianapolis. That was more of a Paul George shot. It was very nice to introduce the world to playoff Paul George in a big game last night. No, you can't take anything away. Completely different tracks. Honestly, if you look at racing styles, this is an obscure one. Go look at Phoenix. Phoenix is bigger than Bristol. It's a little bit of the same layout as far as the banking and the coming out of the turns. There's a lot of similar driving styles and patterns that you need. And the results haven't come for Kevin Harvick at Bristol like they have at Phoenix. But the rest of the drivers, they eerily kind of mirror each other. So if I'm looking at a track to really compare, it's not going to be a flat track like Richmond or Richmond. It's not going to be Dover. Or, I'm sorry, Martinsville. Yeah. It's not going to be Dover. For me, it's going to be Phoenix. It's a weird comparison, but if you look at it, the results are fairly similar.
That is definitely a weird comparison. What are your thoughts, Rocky? That would not have occurred to me. And one thing I will say, if that's true, Andy, that's the championship race as well. So this could be some foreshadowing who could be very well in the mix.
There's less wrecks at Phoenix because it's not as close. But when you have those long green flag runs at Phoenix and the long green flags at Bristol, they look kind of similar. That I guess that's kind of my point, my takeaway from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I definitely do not use Phoenix as a comparison just because it's flat versus heavily banked. But that's interesting. I mean, sometimes tracks like that do correlate. Rocky, what are your thoughts on that? Have you ever looked at Phoenix?
I haven't compared to Bristol, but that's very interesting what Andy brought up, and I'll definitely be looking at it this weekend a little deeper.
Yeah, and that's something I love about this show, guys, is that we all know we have an edge in NASCAR, and we all take slightly different approaches, and you kind of mix them together. Sometimes you find more edges. So interesting, Andy. I'm going to look at Phoenix as well. It's not something that's been on my radar. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I just really haven't considered to look at it because it's such a flat track. Yeah, but I would tell viewers, once again, Richmond, a 3/4 mile short track, Virginia, Bristol right on the border of Virginia, Tennessee, another half-mile short track, but very different tracks. So the results we saw this past weekend might not correlate, although Keselowski will probably be strong again. He's decent on all these tracks. But, guys, isn't it something, though, the first two winners so far, Harvick and Keselowski? When all is said and done,
of course,
playoff time, and the two most consistent drivers week in and week out. Now, this week, Keselowski was the best car. Last week, Harvick wasn't. But Keselowski dominated. He led by far the most laps, led over 100 laps at Richmond, and really deserved to win that race easily like he did. And we'll see if that happens at Bristol. Bristol's a different beast. You can lead a lot of laps at Bristol. By the way, with fantasy this week, you're going to want to find a guy you think is going to be up front, because if you get points for laps led, it's a half-mile track, so you're talking about several hundred more laps than some other tracks have, like Pocono, for example, or something.
Daytona.
Right. They got the same banking as Daytona, but it's 5 times shorter. It's a half mile versus 2.5. Is that crazy? 5 times shorter, but the same banking as Daytona. That's why it's such a unique track, as we said. I'll tell you what else is unique, guys, and that's the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award. So you guys start thinking about it. I'll do a little housekeeping here. We got wagertalk.com for myself and Andy, sportsmemo.com for Rocky. NASCAR best bets are up there each and every week from both these guys. And then, of course, we all do other sports as well. Andy's great in golf. He has a UFC live show on Saturday evenings where you get free information and in-fight, wagers for live, free, making some money. Andy, what time are you going to be on this weekend with the live show? 5, 6 usually?
Yeah, it's normally 5 or 6. Honestly, we've it's been fluid because we keep losing fights due to COVID. One guy cut too much weight and got himself sick, so he lost a fight. But we were 3-0, undefeated in live bettings on the show last Saturday. Yeah, we're doing really good. We bet on a guy based on his haircut. That's 2-0 in haircut fights. I'm not kidding. And we bet on a guy based on his man boobs.
Yeah,
and
but
that's a real thing that happened.
You're doing a discredit to yourself, though, because people are tuning in for the first time. We're going to think you guys are just messing around. These guys know their stuff.
No, we're not. We're not.
Yeah, Rocky and I have chimed in. Yeah, Rocky and I have chimed in. These guys know their stuff. Nathan and Andy do a great job, and they're on there 4 or 5 hours straight, and they're watching these fights. They're telling you exactly what they're betting as they're doing it. And anybody, I know we have a lot of viewers here that transfer over that UFC show, and they know you know your stuff. But if anyone's new here, they're definitely digging deeper than just the haircuts, as much fun as that is. And Andy's figured out how to use the banners here on StreamYard, by the way, that we do the shows on. And I'm sharing my account with them, viewers. And as I came in Monday to do the NBA show after the weekend, I looked at some of my banners. In fact, I'll pull them up right now. Let's see what we have in here, Andy Lang.
There's guys in there's a lot of guys in here that watch the UFC shows. They're gonna laugh when you pull up these banners. But
we had Sprinkle Pop. I understood that one, and I actually understood Salad Boy because I knew what that running joke was. And yeah, here we go, 3-0 live bets. So see,
Boom.
documented here. If it's a banner, you know it's true because it's on the internet. There we go. But Andy, yeah, once again, he'll be back Saturday evening, right before the first fight start here on Wager Talk TV. And of course, Rocky, you're doing baseball, basketball, football.
He's not doing it; he's crushing it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what have been your early thoughts on all these sports so far, Rocky? How'd football start off for you?
Well, actually, I started off losing. I lost my NFL play on Sunday. I had the Jets. I was 74% last year with all my NFL picks.
Oh, my goodness.
Rocky, stop. 74%?
For the entire season?
That's the best in the world.
That's
that is just the best in the world.
And unfortunately, you weren't in the Hilton contest, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't release a lot of picks, though. You see, that was, around 20 picks. You know what I mean, for the season. So, but this weekend, I've got 3 NFL plays loaded now, 2 5% best bets. I'm 16-1, my last 17 top NFL plays. So those are loaded. I'm going to be loading NASCAR later tonight. I should have at least one play. I'm going to finalize that. I found some odds that I want to share with you guys and some matchups that we've been using so we can jump on and get these picks out a little earlier. But, yeah, baseball rolling. I think I'm like 37-12 my last 49. So doing good. I did lose last night. I had the Clippers. So I did lose in the NBA.
I was with you Sunday on the Clippers, by the way, Rocky. It was looking pretty good when they were up by 16 at halftime. And then I luckily stayed off that. In fact, I said on the show yesterday, guys, the fact that none of us on the show yesterday, Teddy and I both had the Clippers Sunday, and the fact that none of us had them last night, the more we analyzed that game, we basically all started really liking them. And I was like, this is a sure thing they're going to cover because we all stayed off of them. So when they lost by double digits, I didn't know you were on them. I wouldn't have been as happy had I known you were on them, but I was a little glad that I hadn't used them. But what a train wreck. What a total disappointment. And you got to figure the NBA is not too happy about that. They could have the LA finals in the Western Conference. Although the more I thought about that, guys, and we'll get back to NASCAR, but the more I thought about that, this almost guarantees they get the Lakers in the final. And that's what the NBA really wants. So who knows? Maybe this was a conspiracy more than we realized to make sure LeBron and company makes the finals, and they maybe get the Celtics, although they're down 0-1. I had them last night, nice 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. So NBA's driving me a little crazy. And by the way, viewers, we don't have an NBA show today because there is no pro basketball. So we'll be back tomorrow on Thursday. The way we're going to do it going forward is basically the days that we have playoff games. I think we'll have an NBA live show at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll actually be on MLB First Pitch right after this at 2 p.m. Eastern if anybody would like some baseball info. And Rocky is crushing it in baseball, as he just mentioned. What was it, 37-11-ish? I mean, what's it matter at that point? My goodness. SportsMemo.com. Rocky's at SportsMemo.com. Andy and myself at WagerTalk.com. And Rocky's got some 5% NFL best bets up now, so it pays to go early. Andy's going to have – you have some golf this week, Andy?
It's U.S. Open week.
That's what I thought.
No, in all honesty, I have the single biggest golf package I've ever put up at Wager Talk. 8 head-to-head matchups.
Wow.
I tweeted out at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. It's U.S. Open week, and I started my handicapping. I went to bed at 3 a.m. I handicapped golf from 8 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Wow.
It was the bets were flying off the board, and when you get a major like the U.S. Open, they have so many props and so many head-to-head matchups, and I absolutely love it. I'm undefeated in 5% plays for golf, and I have one this week.
Do you find, Andy, that the lines don't move quite as bad against you with a bigger major like
on
this?
On a major,
Yes,
on a major, you have so much more money coming in that I can get more stable lines. Like last week was the BS Safeway Open. There's nothing safe about betting on the Safeway Open with that field. But yes, it's U.S. Open week. If there's one golf package you want to get, it's this one.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad I asked you. I forgot it was the U.S. Open. I knew it was, but I'd forgotten until I asked you. So that's awesome. I'm glad that you let us know. Yeah, so 8 best bets from Andy. And extra value this week as these lines don't move quite as intense because there's more public square money. And Rocky, of course, crushing it in baseball, as he mentioned. And he's going to bounce back after hitting 74% in the NFL last year. I'd say now's a pretty good time to get on board when he has a couple 5% best bets. SportsMemo.com for Rocky, WagerTalk.com for myself and Andy. All right, viewers, we gave you a little extra time there to think about the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award. I don't have anything too great. I mean, Keselowski dominated the race. I think Hamlin's speeding penalty and pit road guy will be something I throw out there because Hamlin is a guy that's very strong at Richmond. He's been strong all year, and he underperformed in my perspective. But Rocky, what are some thoughts on the unforced error award for this week at Richmond?
Yeah, I don't have many at either. Did we even have a caution? I think there were like 3 cautions, maybe the whole race or something. And
I'll tell you what, Rocky, I went to the last 2 Richmond races, including last fall when they last raced there, and there have been less cautions at Richmond the last few years, and I've gone for 20 years, and it is something I keep pointing out, and I've taken a few first-time fans with me the last couple. I was like, all right, here's the game plan, guys. We're going to watch the first hour or so. It's going to get boring as hell at like laps 300. We're going to walk around, get some food, walk around and stuff. And we do that, and there's still no cautions. It's like 2 hours in, the race is almost over, and there's usually one at like lap 40 to go or so. But yeah, you're right, Rocky. I mean, very uneventful. And I remember going 15, 20 years ago, guys, there'd be 2 or 3 fiery crashes at Richmond every year. I mean, it was like, I remember Michael Waltrip had a nasty, it was always in turn 3 there. Something has changed with there's just less cautions everywhere, guys. So yeah, Rocky, you're right though. I mean, there's just been less overall. And I mean, did you see any really unforced errors? I mean, Hamlin's speeding penalty was one, I guess. Yeah,
that's one I've got for sure. Austin Dillon, Denny Hamlin, both had pit road penalties after the competition caution. So I got that one down. And also just beginning the race, Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell having to go to the back for failing inspection. And, Kyle Busch is here in the battling in the playoffs, and they have something like that happen. It didn't mess him up too much. He still finished good, but still you've got to be a little bit more careful, getting your car ready. But that's all I got. Yeah.
Andy, I like the Kyle Busch one, though, Rocky. I'm glad you brought that up because, he's a guy I picked to maybe win the race. And as you mentioned, he was at a real disadvantage from the start. And he finished sixth at stage 2, sixth for the race, but did not finish top 10 stage 1, Andy. So it made a little bit of a difference early on in that race. Andy always has some creative ones, so I'm sure you've got some other ones as well.
This was a struggle. I mean, don't forget Ricky Stenhouse got caught speeding on pit road. If we have a Ricky Stenhouse award, we got to reward that. But I had Kyle Busch failing inspection not once but twice, and then Austin Dillon. Also, don't forget Austin Dillon missed pit road. He tried to come in and just blew it, and almost blew through it. Do you remember last week when we talked about how bad I am at first-time things at Wager Talk?
Yeah, how'd those props go in the NFL? I meant to ask you.
My first 2 props were Marlon Mack over 12.5 carries and Marlon Mack over 54.5 yards rushing. At the end of the first quarter, he had 4 carries for 29 yards, and in the second quarter, he tore his Achilles and is out for the year.
That's making me wonder now.
I have to nominate my again my first ever things at Wager Talk. It's ineligible because it has nothing to do with NASCAR. But if we're going to talk about just
and viewers, that means to buy his picks on first time packages and go the opposite.
See, I got in trouble for saying that last week. By the way, Andy, I just didn't realize there was some more banners up here because I found my Ricky Stenhouse. There've been a couple NBA ones in between, so I didn't see that we are live. I it didn't pop up. Shoot, I deleted it accidentally. I'm sorry, my man. I hit the wrong damn button. Damn, we are live is gone. I'm sorry, but that was a low blow social. Live bet alert. I like this one. Winner. Mortgage bet, though. That might be the best one. I apologize. I just deleted your "We Are Live." I hit the corner with the trash can. So you'll have to take the 3 seconds and type that back.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you got in trouble for saying that because
I didn't. No, I'm joking. I meant with you. No, I was. Joking.
No. I mean, at this point, it's kind of an ongoing joke. And listen, my job is to make people money. If I show up and you and I can make you money by fading my picks, by all means, I will 100. I would much rather everyone make money as opposed to the books. But
I definitely didn't get in trouble. I was joking. So yeah, that was a little fun that we were having here on the show. Shoot, Wager Talk doesn't watch this show.
They watched it when we restart after COVID. Like we said, we called it the keeping the lights on.
I went back yesterday actually, and I watched the original show yesterday, and watched our original and. Corey Andy actually had a comment in there I replied to last night. He's like, "We've come a long way." That was from the second show I think we did. It was actually the first one he did with Prez. He said, "You've come a long way." I go, "Well, thank you for being a loyal viewer, Corey Andy, because we have."
So who are we giving it to? Kyle Busch for failing inspection twice in the playoffs, or Austin Dillon? I think those were our two.
Hard for me to give it to Dillon, guys, because he ran so well. And by the way, I wanted to point out with Dillon when he said pit road, this is something that caught my eye again. Who was it? It was Bell. Remember when Bell was running well a couple months ago and early in the races, and he kept finishing the pit stops about 2 seconds worse than Harvick and the other guys, and he'd go in second or third and come out 10th. Go in second or third, come out 10th. And that catches up to you after a while. And I noticed it with Dillon. It was just a small thing, but he went in when he was top 3 there, middle of the race. And he was a good second and a half slower than Logano and Harvick and whoever else was pitting at the time. And it's just little things like that is why these guys can't win more races. And that's not necessarily an unforced error. It's just a weaker pit crew. But, I'd probably say Hamlin or Busch because Gibbs Racing was so dominant. I mentioned last fall when I went to the race, they swept 1, 2, 3. And I went from between Truex's and Kyle Busch's pit stop following Joe Gibbs at the end of the race. And they were at opposite ends. It was like a back and forth who was going to win it between them. So what do you guys say? Rocky, what do you think? Hamlin or Kyle Busch would be yours? I guess, Andy, you're leaning more Kyle Busch then, right? Because you said Kyle Busch or Dillon.
My vote is Kyle Busch.
I'll tell you what. We'll throw it in the chat here for a few moments. I'll do a banner. So we'll say Kyle Busch or Hamlin. So you guys let me know what you think. And we'll move on to a little bit of Bristol action, guys. Rocky, give me your initial thoughts on the top 3 guy for Bristol. We've talked about the track. It's a half-mile, high-banked, short track, race very fast. Guys are bumping each other. A lot of dinging and dancing. And your car will not be clean when all is said and done, that's for sure.
Okay, Andy, don't laugh.
He's got the H hat on. I wasn't sure if it was Hamlin or Harvick.
Harvick has 2 wins here, 12 top fives, 19 top tens, and 39 races here in Bristol. Average finish 13.8 at this track. Over the past 10 races overall, Harvick has 4 wins, 8 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 6.1. So he's still one of the hottest drivers out there and probably the most consistent this year. It's just hard to go against him. I'm taking him to win it.
And didn't we I think we laughed at him probably back in July when he said Harvick on this track, Andy. I know there's a couple times we've laughed at him this year, but I think he finished 3rd. So I don't know.
I will just casually throw out there that in the last 3 races at Bristol, Harvick's average finish is 21st.
But it was 3rd this year, I believe, wasn't it?
I said casually throw it out there.
I'm not in Harvick on the top 3 just because I'm looking for a week not to use him. And I think that's what you and I were kind of in agreement on this one before. But as Rocky has proven us wrong many times, it's never a bad pick to use Harvick anywhere. What do you think, Andy? Who's a top 3 that you would have in this one at Bristol?
I'm going to save him.
Well, you said Kyle Busch. I knew you said Kyle Busch already, so I'll give you credit for that one, right?
Yeah, I'm going Kyle Busch. His average finish the last 3 races here is 3rd. The reason I'm not going to be on a guy like Harvick is because he's locked into the next round. He's not going to be a guy pushing the action. There's really no upside to bump and bang and get yourself into trouble. As obviously he's good here. I'm kind of blowing smoke at Rocky, but no, I'm looking at guys who are motivated. I'm looking at guys that have a chance to win and need to win. Kyle Busch has a chance to win and he needs to win. He doesn't have that locked in thing. So at the end of the race, if Harvick is in 5th and Kyle Busch is in 3rd, who's going to be pushing harder? It's going to be Kyle Busch. It's going to be the guys that want to get that win to lock themselves in. I'm not saying I'm against Harvick or I'm against Brad, but they really have no upside to take chances. They have no upside to, put a guy into the wall. Kyle Busch does. So I'm going to take Kyle at what I believe is his best track. Average finish is 3rd here the last 3 times. And we talked about how much of a struggle it's been for Kyle not having practice. Bristol's a track you don't need practice at. He knows the track. This is not a huge setup track. This is can you get the handling a little bit right, and can you get on that outside lane? Can you run the inside lane when needed? And yeah, Kyle's my pick this week as the favorite.
Yeah, once again, he finished 2nd in the July race. It's his best finish of the season without winning. And he now has a 2nd race at that track. So even if he does want a little practice, I can't imagine that those notes don't transfer over, and he had a good car at the track. By the way, Harvick finished 3rd. He had the 3rd best driver rating. Kyle Busch actually only had like the 5th or 6th best driver rating. So he wasn't exactly the 2nd best car necessarily, but, still a good finish. Once again, viewers, we got it between Kyle Busch for failed inspection starting in the rear, Denny Hamlin for speeding the penalty on pit road. And so far, guys, it looks like
Hamlin
people are giving it to Hamlin. Yeah. Luminous, one our loyal viewer there. Steven's got Hamlin also. So anybody likes Kyle Busch, make your voice heard here in the next few moments. But I think it's probably going to be Hamlin. That's probably the way I was leaning as well, but I would have been good with either one of them. Rocky, who's another guy you're looking at here in Bristol? Would Kyle Busch be a top 3? I know you said earlier probably not when we talked about him. Who else are you looking at?
Definitely Kyle Busch. I got Kyle Busch number 2. Yeah, I agree with you guys. He has 8 wins here, 13 top 5s, 18 top 10s, and 30 races here in Bristol. Average finish of 13.1 at this track. Over the past 7 races here, Kyle Busch has 3 wins, 5 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and with an average finish of 9.4. He's due.
He's due. All right.
He's been due all year.
We might have to make a banner. He's due.
He's due. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I got a feeling he's going to run good this weekend.
I got to get that one up there before I forget because he's due. That's the due. How great would that be if they put that on his car this week? That would be, the M&M's gives up a little space in the hood there to put he's due. But yeah, I'm on board here. I was on board last week with him, and I might have been, maybe I would have had a top 3 if he hadn't failed inspection. He probably does actually, and he gets all the way to 6 basically about the middle of the race and then finishes there. But yeah, I like him this week as well, guys. Andy, who's somebody else you're looking at here at Bristol?
Real quick, I want to do a couple things from the chat room.
Sure.
Corey wants to know, where do we find driver ratings? He says Corey was looking for this today. It's a great question. My experience is the best way to get the NASCAR information is to get one of the paid websites. They're not too expensive. If you do what we do and you do it at the higher end, it's worth every penny and then some. There are some free websites that are out there that are okay. But for me, I will happily pay money for a website that gives me proper loop data, driver ratings, and gives you the really, really expanded. I use FRCS Pro, and you get the paid subscription, and they tell you how well they run while they're on the lead lap, how well they run under green, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys are looking for stats, that's kind of what I use. I don't know if you guys want to jump on that, because I think it's really important to share with the audience, like, where we get our stuff. So Rocky, what do you use?
Well, before we started this show, you and I talked about it, and we used the same thing.
We use the same website, yeah.
Yeah, we use the same website. I also use a few others, but as far as paid websites, I use that one with you.
And what was it again, guys? Just in case they missed it there.
It's FRCS Pro, and I actually know the guy, and the reason I know the guy is he changed the format this year, and I sent him an email, and I was like, I'm really pissed at you for changing the format, because I had my weekly like thing down. I would go in and I'd look at this, and so I talked to him for like an hour, and he worked me through the website. He's a great guy. It's worth it, but it's not just getting these stats. You have to watch the race, and you need to know how to combine the stats with the race.
Yeah, one I've started using more too as well. Winning Bets, I agree with you. It's driver average is actually a free site.
There you go. Winning Bets just said that in YouTube. Winning.
Yeah, and that's one I like. And in fact, when I just Corey, I actually just pulled up the driver rating from the Bristol results on that site. And a lot, if you go to NASCAR.com, some of the other ones, anywhere you can find the results, a lot of times they'll have the driver rating for that race on the side. But drivers averages does have it. That's actually where I saw it just now. Very easy to navigate as well. I like that site for that reason.
That's a good question. Great question.
Yeah, and I like the driver ratings, guys, because it takes out a little bit of the randomness of like a second place finish with Kyle Busch, and something I'll point out with Truex, he finished second. It's like his 8th time the last 10 races he's been 4th or better, yet he did not lead a lap at Richmond, so and then Keselowski led over 120, I think. So, a second place finish isn't the same as a first place that has 100 some more laps led, and the driver averages take a little bit of your running position and some of that stuff into account. So it's just a good mix, and a lot of times, guy that wrecks late in the race or has trouble finish 20th, but still have like the 5th best driver rating. That jumps out to me as well. It's just a way to know that the guy had a good race in case you didn't watch it. But as Andy said, there's really no replacement for watching it live and knowing exactly what's happening. And as NASCAR fans and as bettors, we enjoy watching them. So it's not like it's a lot of extra work. It's actually somewhat enjoyable. And I'm sure those of you that play fantasy out there enjoy watching them as well, because you have 5 or 6 cars in action. So, yeah, you watch the races, you use these websites, you kind of sprinkle a little bit of all that together, and you have a good combination to handicap. So, Andy, did you give me another pick? Who are you looking at for Bristol?
Yeah, I'd also like to shout out to Corey. He's thanking you in the chat room, even though I answered his question. Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, and you brought it up.
All right.
But I'm the one that controls the banners in this show.
Okay, a guy I brought up last week. He's due. A guy I brought up last week. I think he's getting ready to go on a run. Joey Logano. He was good last week, 3rd, and he's had success here. He's got at least one win. He's got recent success here. I think that's Joey Logano. If he's got the good setup, he loves leading a lot of laps. That's a guy that when he gets out, he's like Truex in that they got the car, they'll get out and Logano can pound out 150 laps led at a track like this. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I like where he's headed. He's on the upswing. He was on the upswing before the COVID. And then after the restart, he was down a little bit. I said I want to catch him on the upswing. I think he appears to be on the upswing. I'll be on Joey Logano this week.
Yeah, Rocky, one thing that jumped out to me other than Keselowski dominating was that Penske was pretty strong other than Blaney. We've talked about Blaney not being good at these tracks recently, but I thought Logano, he was top 3 for most of that Richmond race. And that's another reason to watch the races, guys, is he was like Austin Dillon. He had a good finish, so it's not a surprise. But if Dillon had finished really poorly there at the end, I would have discounted how well he ran because he was running top 3. Logano was running top 3. Chase Elliott was top 3, top 4 most of the race as well. We haven't mentioned him today. But yeah, Logano, Hey, look, we talked about Keselowski and Harvick. Logano's up there as far as consistency. This guy snuck in and won a championship a few years ago. He sneaks into Miami as the 4th driver, and he ends up winning the damn thing. So I come playoff time, come a cutoff race like this, Rocky. Logano's someone to keep an eye on. Who else are you looking at?
Looking at Denny Hamlin here. Hamlin, he has 2 wins, 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and 29 races here in Bristol. Average finish 14.5 at this track. Over the past 7 races here, he has 1 win, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, with an average finish of 9.1. So I'm looking for Hamlin to run well again. He's been one of the best drivers out there all year. No reason for him not to.
Yeah, Andy, what's your take on Hamlin? I mean, he's a guy that looks like he's going to win. In fact, do we want to go ahead and announce him as the official winner, Andy?
Hamlin it is. Hamlin's the winner of the Stenhouse Jr. award.
And I was going to say, has he won it? And he definitely has, because he was the tungsten guy, wasn't he? Wasn't he the tungsten?
He was the second week winner, of course. Yeah.
I think he might have won it since then, if I'm not mistaken. Is this his 3rd? Is that possible?
No, yeah. This is only his 2nd time.
But still the best. So when I was watching those old episodes last night, guys, I was flipping through a few of them, and I found one that I asked you guys about a month ago, and I said, will Kevin Harvick win the award before the season's over? You both guys were both like, whew, and I made it minus money. And I don't think it's going to happen.
So far, not really.
So Hamlin's won it twice now with basically the 2nd best car. And once again, Harvick hasn't won. And has Keselowski won it this year? I got to ask you real quick. I don't recall him winning it.
Yes. Remember he took out Blaney when they were racing for the lead. Oh, yeah. Their teammates, it wasn't at the end of the race, and they were racing for the lead. It was the trifecta.
Exactly right. So, yeah, I mean, it just shows how damn good and consistent Harvick is, that he hasn't been scathed yet. So Hamlin wins it for the 2nd time this year. Tungsten and now speeding pit road, pretty mild, but it wasn't like Rocky and Andy both said, there weren't a lot of good nominees this week. Andy, give me your thoughts on Hamlin, why you like him here at Bristol.
This is going to sound really, really ridiculous. I was texting with my friends about the Clippers and the Nuggets game, and I actually put my money where my mouth was, and I said, I am picking the Nuggets. And my friends were like, you're insane. And I said, no, this is 2020.
Yep.
And we can't have nice things. We can't have the Clippers versus the Lakers because it's 2020. And I think Harvick and Hamlin are 2020. We've seen Harvick win at a track that he was terrible at, that he's never won before. And we've seen Hamlin, once he got his crew chief back, do good at tracks that he notoriously hasn't been good at. And I think this is just 2020. How can you bet against Hamlin? How can you bet against Harvick? You just can't. Now, I'm not going to bet on Harvick because he's got the win, right, but I'm certainly not going to bet against Hamlin. If anything, you got to bet on him. And in fact, if I see a matchup Hamlin against Harvick, I hope I can get Hamlin at plus money, and I'll take that because Hamlin needs a win and Harvick doesn't. But I do have to tell you, here's my sleeper. This is my favorite stat this week. Can I give you guys my favorite stat? Over the last 7 races at Bristol, how many drivers have averaged to finish inside the top 7? Do you guys know?
Yeah, which track you saying? Bristol?
This is Bristol. Yep. Last 7 races. How many guys have averaged to finish?
We're looking at the same sheet here, so I think I probably have an unfair advantage, so I won't answer.
It's 0.
Yeah.
And the number 1 driver with average finish is none other than Clint Boyer.
Yep.
He stays out of trouble. He somehow manages to finish in one piece. If you want a sleeper, I've got Clint Boyer. I think he's a great top 10 play. I think he might be a sneaky top 5 play. He just over and over and over again at this track somehow finishes inside the top 10.
And by the way, we say don't use Richmond too much, but they are still short tracks, and it does somewhat correlate who does well at Richmond. Hamlin, a lot of Kyle Busch, great at both. And guess what? Clint Boyer is really good at Richmond, as we mentioned last week.
Yeah.
And I'll throw out an even better name for you. Guess over those last 7 races, guess who has led the most laps, Rocky, and has the best driver rating? Because, Andy, I know you have it on your screen as well, because we're looking at the same page here, I have a feeling. And, Rocky, I won't waste too much time on this because you're not going to get it right probably. It's Kyle Larson. And it was a little bit of a misleading question because he's only raced 6 of those races.
It's amazing. It's incredible.
So I'll throw it to you, Rocky, though. Do you give Kenseth a little bump because he was good at Richmond? I asked you last week, Andy. You said no, and I was with you. I wasn't on Kenseth either. But Kenseth has been good on short tracks in his career, and he's in it with a team, obviously, and knows how to run well here. Do you give Kenseth any look this week, Rocky?
Definitely. Look at Kenseth in the matchups he's in. I mean, it's like against Bubba Wallace and
interesting
Cole Custer and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So against all those at this track, I would definitely lean to Kenseth for sure.
Yeah, and he top 5 2 of his last 3 Bristol starts, but I don't recall what he did in Bristol. Let me pull it up here. I don't even see him show. He was 18th. So he was top 5 before he retired in 2 straight races at Bristol, but he was 18th with the new team and car, yet he's in a team that has the best numbers at Bristol the last 3 years. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It's hit or miss with Kenseth, but Andy, what are your thoughts on him?
Let me just say this about Kenseth.
So we might get an in-show wager. We do this a lot on the NBA show, but I have a feeling, though, Rocky, that Andy's not going to want Bubba Wallace or Stenhouse against him, so – he's not pro Kenseth, but he's not necessarily against those head-to-heads, I don't think.
I just think you can find better bets on the board to put your money. I wouldn't bet on any of those guys at this point.
So, Rocky, I guess Kenseth wouldn't qualify as a long shot for you because you don't like him to win outright. You like him in select matchups maybe, which I kind of agree with you on those. I mean, those are guys that are all play against guys for me at most tracks. Any other top 3s or long shots for you as far as like the outright wins?
Well, one guy I'm looking at for a long shot would be Kurt Busch at 25-1. I think he has a great shot here. He has 6 wins here. We talk about Kyle a lot here in Bristol, but Kurt's done real well too. 6 wins, 12 top 5s, 21 top 10s in 39 races here. Average finish of 14th at this track. He has 1 win, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s his last 7 races here in Bristol. Average finish of 10.1 during that time. So I'm looking for Kurt Busch to run a good race here.
And guess what? I'm looking at one of the sharp offshores. He's at 15-1. So there's a little bit of sharp square divide between the 25-1 at some other books and sharper books. Yeah, Andy, any long shots for you?
John Hunter Nemechek and Michael McDowell, guys that have had some success. Yeah, guys that have had some success on short tracks. I'm not saying they're going to win, but great DraftKings picks, great daily fantasy guys. I am in a fantasy league where we have to pick. It's like a salaried league where each driver has a number dollar, and you have to come under it, and there's no limit to how many times you can use a guy a year. But I have Nemechek and McDowell as cheapies in my lineup. That way it gives me enough money for Hamlin, Kyle Busch, things like that. I doubt the books are going to put matchups out on those guys. But if you're a daily fantasy, if you're in a fantasy league, those are guys that run really good on short tracks because they don't need the huge horsepower on this track. A lot of it comes down to the driving capabilities and, can you just get the handling set up, and the teams with less money that have the lesser engines can actually compete. So, like I said, not to outright win, but if you're looking for long shots, those are guys I'd go to.
By the way, I'm seeing 1,000-1 and 2,500-1 on McDowell. So, I mean, wow, if you do want to put $1 down, if something crazy happens, you'd have a hell of a payout. And by the way, we didn't mention on this, though, but quickly, we talked about it last time we did Bristol in July. It's a very random track. It's the shortest track, but it's second in randomness and banking to Daytona, as I keep saying. So just like when you handicap Daytona, you put a lot of those back, those low-price guys that can maybe have a good finish. It can happen in Bristol. A couple minutes left. Rocky, I'll quickly get a head-to-head matchup that you might be looking at for this week.
All right, I'm looking at Joey Logano minus 115 over Ryan Blaney. I know Andy's on Logano this weekend. He has 2 wins here, 6 top 5s, 10 top 10s, and 23 races here in Bristol. His average finish is 15.3 at this track. Pretty much fading Blaney here. He has no wins, 1 top 5, 4 top 10, and 10 races here in Bristol. His average finish of 20.7 at this track. So we're going to recommend a small play on Logano to finish ahead of Ryan Blaney this weekend.
Awesome. And Andy, what are your thoughts on that? And I guess also give me maybe a head-to-head you're looking at.
Thoughts are I get to go next week on head-to-head matchups because Rocky and I have started to think we're like a married couple. We start
you make it easy for me. Look, I don't have to type another banner. I love it.
We start to think alike and say the same thing.
That makes it stronger.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. I like it. So you're gonna like Logano as well against Blaney. And we kind of touched on this earlier in the show. Reasons to fade Blaney in general.
Yeah, I do. But I would also like to point out some weird things with these head-to-head matchups.
He liked it so much he's speechless.
Yeah, right. No. I want to point out some things here. So I mentioned Hamlin over someone like Harvick, who's already won. Denny Hamlin is minus 145 over Harvick. When you scroll down, Denny Hamlin is also minus 145 over Blaney. So the books are telling you that Harvick is in the same category as Blaney, and I think they're taking into account this lack of motivation for Harvick to do good this week. Kyle Busch is minus 135 over Harvick. When have we seen Kyle Busch? When would Kyle Busch ever be minus 135 over Harvick? And Brad's minus 135 over Harvick. So I think the books are telling you that Harvick is going to have a bad race or he's not going to go for the win. And I got to say, I think that's when I pounce on it a little bit. I'm going to take Kevin Harvick plus 105 over Brad Keselowski.
Nice.
You have two guys that have already won. Brad won this race. I get it. And so you have two guys that really have nothing to lose. So if you put them and you say, okay, they're equal cars, they're, equal drivers, they're equal crew chiefs, and I get one of them at plus money, to me, that screams value. And when are you ever going to get Kevin Harvick at plus money? So I will take Kevin Harvick plus 105 over Brad just because I don't believe we're ever going to see Kevin Harvick at plus money the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Andy, you mentioned that a few shows ago when Hamlin plus money, I think it was Truex or somebody, and you're like, basically whenever you can get these guys plus money, it's 50-50 at worst.
And that won. It was Hamlin over Truex, and that won.
And it was like second and third, I think. That was one of Truex's. It wasn't, in fact. It was one of Truex's third place finishes because he had like 5 straight. I think you had first or second, and Truex was third. And hey, long term, you're taking Harvick at plus money. I'm with you on that, and that's an interesting one to finish on. Hey, guys, great show. We'll be back next Wednesday, as always, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, every Wednesday here while the NASCAR season continues. MLB First Pitch is up next. I'll be on that with Andrew McGinnis. And, of course, free plays and best bets for myself and Andy at wagertalk.com, Rocky Atkinson at sportsmemo.com. Great show, guys. We'll talk again next Wednesday.